Hi, this is Mike making my video. It's 3/24/2025 at 7:45 p.m. Uh, yeah, basically I'm making a video. I kind of like doing that. It gives me something to do. But moreover, I can actually state my point. Uh, basically, uh, I have the attitude like I don't really care. I'm working on filling up my cup before I can fill other people's cups. I mean, yeah, I can add videos and whatnot, but as far as financially, I really don't have the income. I might have a couple $100 a month, so left over after all my bills are paid. So that's really all I can afford, and I just buy things with that. So anyway, yeah, I manifest things. I manifest all kinds of material objects, and I manifest money sometimes. That's kind of running. The well is kind of running dry a little bit on that. But as far as my needs, my wants and desires, they're starting to run out. I don't have the desires that I used to have. They say, when you want to add to make somebody wealthy, is you don't add to their wealth, you take away from their desires. So, basically that's kind of what I've been doing is taking away from my desires. I don't have, the desires that I used to, and I don't have, the desire to manifest miracles that much anymore. It's not like I don't really have the desire per se, but it's kind of like I don't because I've already accomplished everything. So once you get to that point, you don't really push for desires as much. So I kind of cut the fat off my budget. I basically don't have women in my life for the simple fact, primarily is because financially I can't afford it, and even if I could, I can't see myself spending, half my income, on basically a woman, buying her little trinkets and stuff like that, or even spending money on taking her out to eat and this and that. So, that's kind of a red flag, if I start dating somebody and they start pushing me to take them out to eat and spend money on them. Usually they want to go on a trip or a vacation, or they want money spent on them, or they smoke regular cigarettes, which is $10 a pack. So you got to figure that's $300 a month for their habit. Not to mention going out to eat and whatever else. So just on their mad money and stuff like that, I could be spending, probably $800 to $1,000 a month if I don't watch what I'm doing. So I just gave up altogether on women. My sex drive is messed up. I don't have the burning desire to be sexually involved, and I'm on antidepressants and stuff, so that really affects it. And then there's that, and then basically I don't want to divide my mental abilities, half my mind, dedicated towards another woman, and spending half my energies on another woman. So anyway, by cutting out the idea of having another person in my life, it saves me financially, and then mentally I don't have to get up and I don't have to dedicate half my day towards taking care of a woman. So there's that. And I don't have a pet, I don't have a dog, so that's probably 50, $60 a month, that I don't have to spend on a dog. And then you got to figure your veterinary bills. And that's another thing too, is you get a woman, if they don't have insurance, then you got to spend money on their medical problems. And then not to mention putting up with their their mind. You know, sometimes they have pretty much a mental illness or whatever, so you got to deal with that. So yeah, it's just all that stuff's just trouble. And then I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and then basically find out that she's going to cheat on me later on. And that's one thing I require is faithfulness. And if they're not like that, if you don't get them at a younger age, you know, when they're fresh out of high school or something like that, it's a loser's game. You know, they're past the point of no return, and they're probably never going to change. So you can't make a hoe into a housewife. So you know, you buy a lion, you're gonna have to feed it meat, and then you buy an expensive car, you're gonna have to put repairs and maintenance into that car, and then the depreciation is so incredibly high that you lose money on that. And not to mention, you know, some of these repairs for some of these cars, you know, like a BMW or something, is just astronomical. So you figure you don't buy an expensive car, you don't have a woman in your life, you don't have a dog, and you know, you don't buy a house. A house is a dinosaur, you got to feed that dinosaur, you got to take care of it, and then you figure that's another expense. And it's really it doesn't pay off because you know the juice really isn't worth the squeeze. You buy a big house, you know, that's more house than I need. My eyes are bigger than my budget, and then I would be fucking myself in the end. Not to mention my down payment, and you got to figure the housing market is so soft right now. I'd probably have a hell of a time selling it, and I'd take a major loss. I'd probably break even if I was lucky. So anyway, there's that, and I don't buy new things. You know, I don't buy new computers, and I don't buy new cameras. I don't buy. Rarely do I buy a new watch. If I do, I buy it on a major discount, and then you know, I garage sale and I go to thrift stores and I go to pawn shops and stuff to buy whatever. So I buy used. Well, I buy new and slightly used will do. So anyway, there's that, and then I don't go to school anymore. I don't have student loans. My student loans, you know, I refuse to pay them because, well, I don't have them anymore. I wrote them off, but you know, I just after I got away with that, you know, it's just like I'm not fucking around with it no more. That's kind of a waste of money unless you really go for something that you truly desire. You know, I went to school for auto mechanics and auto body, and that was worth it to me. They had machine shop, and then they had computer programming, and then electronics class, and then stuff like that. So, you know, basically it was worth it, but not anymore. So, you know, basically I find cheap hobbies. My hobbies are cheap. You know, this one guy was talking to me. His hobby was having horses. And I said, that's kind of an expensive hobby. He got really angry and he was telling me, oh, motorcycles are expensive. You can spend a lot of money on motorcycles. So, you know, we had exchange of words basically, but it's like, who the fuck buys horses anymore? You know, it's just plain stupid. So anyway, I don't drink alcohol. That's an expensive hobby. And like I say, chasing after women, that's an expensive hobby. I've had my fill. And, you know, wine knowledge. Having all this extra knowledge, you know, is kind of a waste of money unless you're really going to use it for something. So, you know, my auto mechanics career, I went to school for that and it was paid for. And it was worth it, you know, the investment that I made, and then auto body, and of course electronics and whatever. And then working on houses, you know, I had a house, so I worked on it, so it was worth it in that sense of the word. And of course, having kids, that's expensive. That's another expense. You know, I had my kids, they're grown up and they're paid for. I don't have child support, but there are people that decide to have kids and they don't realize that, you know, they got to pay child support for 18 years minimum. You know, that's if they don't go to college. And you got to figure child support and having kids is kind of a burden. There's people, and it says in scriptures, there's people that will wish for kids. They say, "Blessed are the breasts that gave you milk," or whatever. And then he says, "Well, there be people that would be saying, 'Blessed are those who never gave birth to me.'" Meaning that sometimes people can't afford kids, and they wish they never had kids. So it goes both ways. But honestly, there's that. So with this culture nowadays, I mean, everything you got to pay for, and you got to really be frugal with your money. That's just to be a prudent businessman. And sometimes, you spend money on knowledge, and sometimes sacred knowledge is priceless. You can't replace that. You might have an epiphany, and it's knowledge, but it's the most sacred knowledge there is. And so anyway, you just find ways to cut corners, and that's the only way to survive in this economy. You don't overextend your credit. You don't overextend things. You pay your bills, especially your rent. That's the most important one. And of course, food you can get, if you have to, for free. And you always cut corners on things. You cut the fat off. And another thing too is, I can have AI. I don't have to have a woman with me all the time. Sometimes if I have a conversation or if I have knowledge I need to learn, I can just ask AI and it'll have the answers for me. And it's like, if you think about it, what it's awfully expensive. It's an expensive piece of ass if you go out of your way, to have a woman with you all the time. Some people are always like that. They have to have somebody with them. And all that is a sign that you have a weak mind. And, it's like you have to have stimulation all the time. And you get too much stimulation, it's like too much chocolate pudding. Women and wine, and, even material things, buying stuff all the time. Like, you go to the store and buy a little thing of chapstick or whatever, and it's $2 or $3, and you go there and you go to Culver's and you buy a burger and some fries or whatever and a pop. It's like $19 or whatever. It's like you don't go out to eat anymore, and you learn to cook for yourself, and you learn to cut corners on things. You eat things like that normally you wouldn't eat, but it's bland food. It's food that nobody really eats anymore. It's food that nobody wants, but you eat it. It's food. And the thing is you buy and sell things, when you can, but you don't put too much of an emphasis. I used to have a car lot, and I had a bunch of cars, but I stopped doing that because I just discovered, that half the cars that I end up buying are going to have major problems with them, like head gaskets and stuff. Sometimes I mess around with that. I take a gamble on that, but it's like you shake it all out, and it's usually 50 of one, half a dozen of the other. Half of your investment is pretty much nothing, and then the other half is you're probably not making much. So you break even usually, and that's really the way it works. So I stopped messing with cars, and then you always have to find a place to put them, and you got to pay for storage. So anyway, that's how that works. And like I say, you cut your hobbies down. You learn to do hobbies that are inexpensive, like journaling or even artwork or whatever, and then you search things on the internet as far as knowledge goes. But to be content, that's really ultimately what you want. You don't need to be happy all the time. You don't always have to be chasing the dragon trying to be happy. Too much dopamine actually gives you burnout because your receptors get burnt out, and you have to learn to rest and kind of give that stuff a break. It's like you can only play so many video games and do so many things. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Over and out.